I'd like to welcome you to this walk through Romans. Today we're in Romans, the 5th chapter. We're going to begin with verse number 6. So get your Bibles out and read along with us and study along with us as we study through these wonderful verses of this book of the Bible. Now, the book of Romans is a book that really clarifies salvation. Martin Luther, when he was writing his thesis, was reading the book of Romans. And from the book of Romans, he got this understanding of being justified by faith. And so the book of Romans is a tremendous book for all of us to have an understanding of. And that's why we're studying the book of Romans. We want you to understand your salvation. We want you to understand what Jesus did for you. You know, if you don't understand some of the things that you have, several years ago I was given a pickup truck, and I love that truck. But that truck has more bells and whistles on it than Carter has pills. I mean, and for 2 years I never could figure out what a button was until one day I realized that if I push that button, the mirrors fold in. You know what? My problem is I wasn't using what I didn't understand. And that's why we need to understand salvation. We need to understand what Jesus did for us. And that's what happens as we study the book of Romans. Now, Romans 5 verse 6 says this: "For while we were still helpless, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly." Now, there's a couple phrases in here that I want us to look at. The first one is, "for while we were still helpless." You see, the very first step in receiving salvation is to come to this place where you understand that you're absolutely helpless. Now, this word helpless in the Greek language, it actually means to be without strength. Sometimes it was used to describe a person who was handicapped, who couldn't walk, who was lame. What was their problem? They were without strength, without ability in their legs or arms or whatever part of their being that was handicapped. So we need to understand that without Jesus, we were completely helpless. We could not do anything. We could do nothing in order to receive salvation, in order to receive justification. Let me just say this. If you came to God thinking that you had something to give to God, you know what? You came to God with the wrong reason. We need to come to God out of desperation. We need to come to God knowing that we in ourselves can do nothing. Nada. Spanish. Nothing. Nothing at all. And so the Apostle Paul, when he writes here in verse 6, he writes a principle that is absolutely needed for us to receive salvation. The picture we get here is of a person who has nothing to give, no strength, no ability, and that he comes in desperation to Jesus. That's where we begin our salvation. Today, if you're thinking that you can make it on your own, I've got news for you. You can't. You can't make it on your own. You, in yourself, are completely helpless, completely without strength. But let's go on to the next phrase. At the right time, Christ died. At the right time. Now, we need to understand that the word that the Apostle Paul uses here is the Greek word kairos. The word he uses for the right time is the Greek word kairos. And what does the Greek word kairos means? It means at the exact opportune time. Now, let me just say this to you, and I'm not a Greek professor. My understanding of the Greek language is limited. There's a Greek word called chronos, and it means time, like you have on your watch. The Apostle Paul didn't say that. He said that Christ at his opportune time, at his right time. Do you know that God has a timetable? And that he's got everything in order, everything set in time. Let me just say this. Our problem many times is not a lack of faith, but it's a misunderstanding of the timing of God. You see, when you understand that God has a time, that God had an appointed time for Jesus to die on the cross, you know what? It helps you to understand that God has this whole thing under control. He is sovereign God. He has it under control. And so the Apostle Paul says, at the right time. And then the last phrase I want to look at for today is a beautiful, beautiful phrase. And it says, and he died. And he died, but notice he says, and he died for the ungodly. At the right time, Jesus went to the cross, and he didn't go to the cross for people who are saying, hey, I can do this in my own. I can do this in my own strength. No, he died for the ungodly. Now, this word ungodly could also be translated as people who are absolutely useless to God. You see, Jesus didn't die for your usefulness. He died because he loved you, and he loved me, and he loves mankind. He loves those people who absolutely have no use to him at all. You know, we say God is omnipotent, all-powerful, and that's true. So why would he need man? He never needed man. He just loved man. He loves mankind. So today, maybe you're feeling useless to God. Maybe you're feeling like you have no strength at all. My word to you as we close this video is turn to God. He's waiting for you. Thank you for watching.